For too long, humanity has been nothing more than an afterthought in Vampire the Masquerade. The 90s glamorized the dark ascendancy of vampire conspiracies where the masquerade is nothing but a minor inconvenience, the violation of which can simply be swept under the rug or dealt with internally by the Camarilla. But in an age of instant global communications, surveillance states, social media, and total sensor saturation by intelligence agencies and big tech, it's no longer possible to hand-wave away the consequences of violating what was always supposed to be the most crucial tradition of kindred society. It's Vampire the Masquerade, and it's not just an affectation, it's the only means of survival in the modern nights.
Others who have been concealing themselves, but now they have emerged from their sorry little rooms, their ditches of uncertainty. They are all out there now.
Because at long last, John Paul III has formed the angry base of the young Catholic army. If need be, I will expand, inspire, and arm them.
The 5th edition of Vampire, to its extraordinary credit, recognizes the truth of this. Rather than falling back on assumptions that no longer make sense in the modern day, it leans into this fact, and it re-energizes the core idea and original intent of the game. You are a monster, and there are devastating consequences for revealing your nature to the living. The world does not belong to you.
Maybe it's time we forgot about discretion. We should be ruling the humans. For fuck's sake, these people are our food, not our allies.
You're out of line, Frost.
Am I?
Because of the overwhelming power of humanity and the carelessness of the kindred, the Masquerade has been penetrated. The upper echelons of mankind are awake and aware of the existence of vampires. Before V5, the consequences for breaking the Masquerade were almost always inconsequential or confined within vampire society. Maybe the sheriff gave you a stern talking to, or the prince curtailed your feeding privileges in the city. At worst, you'd have a blood hunt thrown on you. But no matter what happened, humanity was none the wiser. But this is no longer the case. If you breach the Masquerade, the consequences are not a slap on the wrist from the prince. It's cruise missiles and precision-guided bombs hitting Elysium. It's Vatican Black Ops teams breaking into the Primogen's haven and burning it to the ground. It's a death sentence, not just for you, but for every vampire in the city. The 21st century is an extinction-level event for the kindred. These are the final nights, but it isn't biblical prophecies or Lovecraftian elders that will bring the tides of Gehenna. It's the overwhelming strength of mankind and the bottomless resources at their disposal that will wipe vampires from the face of the earth once and for all.
I understand.
Do you?
Do you? This is it. I'm telling you, this is it.
And this isn't the Black Lodge Games schizo take on the material. V5 presents this clearly. The Tremere are a broken clan. The Chantry having been blacktopped by cruise missiles. London has been scoured. Mithras is dead. And the intelligence agencies once infiltrated by the kindred have turned the Eye of Sauron on the undead. And this is awesome. V5 wasn't written this way to ruin your fun. It was written this way because the people making this game took the world seriously and were confronted with the undeniable facts of the modern world. It ramps up the tension, and it gives undeniable weight to the consequences of your actions. The strength of Vampire has always been that it felt real. You were always playing a character in extraordinary circumstances based in a world nearly identical to ours. Vampire can't be played in the modern nights without coming to terms with the inevitable victory of mankind over these monsters. The globe-spanning conspiracy of the Camarilla cannot survive in the world of the 21st century. And this hopelessness is not new. Vampire the Masquerade always assumed that the end was nigh, and that you almost certainly wouldn't make it out alive. The difference is that this has been reframed in a much more believable way in the 5th edition of this great game. With humanity as the titanic force set against vampires rather than slumbering blood gods of a forgotten age, this game has actually been improved in a deep and fundamental way. You've always been playing the bad guy in Vampire. That's what a curse is. It's not a path to thriving in darkness. You suffer, you die, and you lose. The sad tendency of players to revel in the curse is a profound misunderstanding of the game, and it's an embrace of nihilism. The story of Vampire is not a celebration of climbing the rungs of a political ladder to sit on the throne of a satanic Illuminati. No victory is ever worth the cost. The best you can hope for is to barely cling on to what remains of your humanity, because eventually and inexorably, all that you and your kind have ever built will collapse under the weight of its own evil. Vampire is about the inevitable defeat of wickedness. It doesn't repudiate heroism. It proves the futility of evil. All of those great resonant stories and myths of humanity are about mankind triumphing over chaos. They're about building and imposing civilizations out of barbarism and savagery. Vampire attempts to flip the script and deconstruct this narrative by letting you play the villain, but in the end, it's only proven the superiority of the human and the good. All of our oldest stories, from Romulus founding Rome to Arthur unifying England, our heroes conquer evil and give birth to civilizations. The heroes defeat the monsters. Vampire is the dark reflection of this story. The kindred cannot even conquer the beasts within themselves, and their story is not one of beginning, but of ending. There are no illusions that the monsters will win in the end. There's no light at the end of the tunnel for evil. And for this reason, Vampire does not elevate evil, it rejects it. And this is why the dark reflection of Vampire has been so compelling to so many people. The evil of the kindred is dressed seductively. It's made hip and speaks to the darker desires of man. But we know that vampires are evil by their very nature, and for all of their glamour and power, they're destined to be defeated. Defeat is their nature, and this is why their story is fundamentally about the end of their reign. Every iteration of Vampire has had its end times for the players, and it's not even assumed that they can face the tide that threatens them. This is an implicit admission of the futility of all that the kindred stand for, whether it's the silly prophecies of the antediluvians or the Second Inquisition or even the Strix in the Fall of Rome in Vampire the Requiem. The villain's lot is always catastrophe, and that's how it should be. So if you're on the fence about playing Vampire because it seems too dark or that it glorifies evil, you don't have to worry about that. Vampire knows that evil is a sucker's game. It forces you to make mistakes while you play, because watching the bad guys fail is fun. It's good. So don't feel guilty. Stalk the night, be the villain, and take pleasure in their inevitable defeat. Because in the end, the good guys always win. And don't miss the Kickstarter for our new Shadow Dark module, the Shucked Oyster, launching on August 6th.